In a world still ruled by horses and steam, one man dared to dream of a machine that could move under its own power. His name was Karl Benz, and from a small workshop in Mannheim, he sparked a revolution that would change how humanity travels forever. This is the story of a boy genius who became the father of the automobile, a story of relentless innovation, crushing setbacks, and a daring partner, Bertha Benz, whose historic journey proved his invention's worth. Along the way, rivals like Gottlieb Daimler and Wilhelm Maybach were shaping their own machines, unknowingly driving toward the same destiny. From the first gasoline-powered car to the legendary Mercedes-Benz brand, this is more than history. It's the birth of an idea that still drives the world today. Buckle up, because the road to the future began here, with one man's refusal to let the impossible stay impossible. The year is 1844. Europe is in the middle of the Industrial Revolution. Cities are growing, factories are roaring, and the sound of steam engines fills the air. But when it comes to travel on land, nothing has changed for centuries. People still rely on horses, carriages, and the same slow, muddy roads their grandparents used. The idea of a machine that could move on its own, no horses, no rails, sounds like a fantasy. Yet in the quiet German town of Mühlberg, a boy named Karl Benz is about to be born into this world of iron and steam. He will grow up to challenge it entirely. Karl's father, a locomotive driver, dies when Karl is only 2 years old. For most children, that loss would have been the end of any big dreams. But for Karl, it becomes the beginning. His mother, despite living in modest conditions, sees something extraordinary in him, a curiosity that can't be contained. She encourages it, no matter the odds. By the time Karl is 15, while other teenagers are thinking about apprenticeships or trades, he's already enrolled in the Polytechnic School of Karlsruhe, studying mechanical engineering. At 15, he's the youngest student there, barely tall enough to look over some of the drafting tables, yet determined to learn everything about machines. This is a time when engines are massive, coal-burning beasts. They're noisy, heavy, and chained to factories or trains. But Karl can't shake the thought, what if you could shrink that power? What if a machine could carry people anywhere they wanted to go? It's a thought that refuses to leave his mind, even as the rest of the world dismisses it as impossible. Karl Benz doesn't know it yet, but the seeds of a revolution are already growing in his young mind. A revolution that will take the world off horseback and onto wheels powered by nothing but fire, fuel, and fearless imagination. And this is only the beginning. By the time Karl graduates at just 19, he's not just an engineer. He's a young man with an obsession. While his classmates are content working for established companies, Karl dreams of building something entirely his own, something the world has never seen. But dreams, especially bold ones, cost money, and Karl doesn't have much of it. So, in 1871, together with business partner August Ritter, he opens a small mechanical workshop in Mannheim called Benz and Company. At first, they build stationary gas-powered engines, reliable machines for factories. It pays the bills, but Karl's mind is always somewhere else. Each hammer strike, each gear turned, is just another step toward his secret goal, creating a vehicle that can move under its own power. At this time, the idea of a horseless carriage is laughable to most. To Karl, it's destiny. But the road ahead isn't smooth. Early prototypes fail. Investors question his sanity. Even Ritter, his partner, doesn't share his vision. Eventually, Karl buys him out, staking everything he owns on an invention no one has asked for. This is also when fate gives Karl an unexpected advantage: his wife, Bertha Benz. Far from being a bystander, Bertha becomes his greatest supporter. She believes in his dream completely, pushing him forward when the world pushes back. Together, they form not just a marriage, but a partnership that will one day make history. Late into the nights, Karl sketches, calculates, and experiments. Every setback fuels his determination. Every small success feels like proof that he's on the right path. Somewhere deep down, he knows if he can just get it right, the world will never travel the same way again. The workshop smells of oil and ambition, and soon out of this small, crowded space, will roll a machine unlike anything the streets have ever seen. The first step toward changing history is about to leave the blueprint. By the late 1870s, Karl Benz's workshop is alive with the constant hum of creation. Metal clangs, gears spin, and the scent of oil hangs heavy in the air. But behind the noise is a man who feels the weight of two worlds: the steady income from factory engines and the risky, all-consuming dream of a self-propelled vehicle. Most people in Mannheim see Karl as a brilliant mechanic, but also as someone chasing a fantasy. The challenge isn't just building something new, it's inventing everything from scratch. There are no manuals, no existing car parts, no guides to follow. If Karl needs a component, he has to design and make it himself. And the biggest hurdle? The engine. Steam engines are too bulky. Electric motors are weak and impractical for long distances. Karl bets everything on a lightweight gasoline engine, a concept so untested that most engineers dismiss it as foolish. Money is tight, but Bertha stands firm by his side. She uses her dowry to keep the business alive, paying for materials when investors hesitate. Friends and neighbors watch with curiosity, whispering about the strange machine taking shape in Karl's workshop. Late nights turn into early mornings. Karl works with relentless precision, handcrafting each part. Flywheels, crankshafts, gears, every detail matters. And then, in 1879, after countless failures, his single-cylinder, two-stroke gasoline engine roars to life for the first time. It's loud, it's raw, and it's unlike anything the town has ever heard. The moment is electric. For Karl, it's not just an engine, it's the heartbeat of the future. But an engine alone isn't enough. He knows the next step will be even harder, building an entire vehicle around it. And if he fails now, years of sacrifice could vanish overnight. The workshop door closes, the tools are laid out, and Karl Benz begins crafting the machine that will one day make his name immortal. By 1885, the workshop in Mannheim is no longer just a place for engines. It's the birthplace of something the world has never seen. Karl Benz works like a man possessed. The heart of his invention, the single-cylinder gasoline engine, is ready. Now it needs a body. But this isn't about attaching an engine to a carriage. Karl knows the design must be built from the ground up to work as one complete machine. Piece by piece, he handcrafts the frame from steel tubing, light yet strong enough to hold the engine. 3 wire-spoked wheels are chosen instead of 4 to keep it simple and reduce weight. A wooden bench serves as the seat, while a tiller replaces the horse reins, letting the driver steer. Every decision is radical and risky. On a cold day in 1885, the contraption finally stands on its own 3 wheels. It's officially called the Benz patent motorwagen. The first test runs are quiet, cautious, and shaky. The primitive carburetor is tricky, and the drive chain struggles on uneven roads. But when the machine moves forward under its own power, Karl feels a rush unlike anything he's ever known. January 29, 1886, becomes the official turning point. Karl files a patent for his invention. Patent number 37,435. The world's first automobile. It's a legal acknowledgement that he's created something entirely new. But there's still one problem. The world isn't ready. People stare, point, even laugh. Some think it's dangerous. Others say it's a toy for the wealthy. For Karl, none of that matters. He knows he's holding the blueprint for the future in his hands. All he needs now is a way to show the world it works. Not in theory, but in the open roads where doubt will turn to belief. Benz may have invented the automobile, but it was Bertha Benz who proved it could change the world. By 1888, the motorwagen was ready for real use, but no one outside Mannheim truly believed in it. Investors hesitated. Customers were uncertain. Karl himself was cautious about long journeys. Bertha, however, was not. One early August morning, without telling her husband, Bertha quietly rolled the motorwagen out of the workshop. Her destination? Her mother's house in Pforzheim, more than 60 miles away. With her 2 teenage sons in the seat beside her, she set off on what would become the first long-distance automobile journey in history. The trip was anything but easy. Roads were rough, designed for horses, not wheels. Fuel wasn't available in stations. Bertha had to buy Ligroin, a type of gasoline, from a local pharmacy. When the motorwagen needed repairs, she improvised, using her hat pin to unclog a fuel pipe and her garter to insulate a wire. Villagers stared in awe as the strange, rattling machine rolled through their towns. After more than 12 hours, Bertha arrived safely in Pforzheim, sending a clear message to everyone. The motorwagen wasn't just an invention, it was a revolution in motion. Newspapers picked up the story, and interest in Karl's car exploded. Bertha hadn't just taken a trip, she had done what every great breakthrough needs. She made people believe. Without her daring, the motorwagen might have stayed a workshop curiosity. With it, she turned Karl's dream into a movement that could no longer be ignored. While Karl and Bertha were proving the motorwagon's worth, another revolution was brewing 60 miles away in Cannstatt. Gottlieb Daimler and his brilliant partner Wilhelm Maybach were chasing the same dream, to bring the internal combustion engine to everyday transport. Daimler, once an engineer in the steam industry, wanted engines that were small, fast, and powerful. Maybach, a gifted designer, turned those ideas into reality. In 1885, the same year Karl built the motorwagen, they unveiled the Reitwagen, a wooden two-wheeler powered by a compact petrol engine. It wasn't a car, but it was proof their engine could be adapted to many vehicles, from boats to carriages. Unlike Karl, who built both the engine and the car together, Daimler and Maybach focused on perfecting the engine first. They believed the future lay in speed and versatility. Soon, their high-speed petrol engines were being fitted into everything from motorized boats to early stagecoaches, drawing international attention. Though Karl didn't yet know them personally, the work of Daimler and Maybach was racing alongside his own. Two parallel roads leading toward the same destination. In time, these paths would cross, and the three men's separate dreams would merge into one of the most iconic automotive names in history. For now, they were rivals without rivalry, inventors shaping the same future from different corners of Germany, and the clock was ticking toward the day when their visions would unite under a single star. By the late 1880s, Germany was unknowingly at the center of a transportation revolution. In Mannheim, Karl Benz was refining his motorwagen, making it sturdier, easier to operate, and more reliable for everyday use. In Cannstatt, Gottlieb Daimler and Wilhelm Maybach were selling their lightweight, high-speed petrol engines to coach builders and innovators across Europe. Both parties believed their approach was the future, and both were right in different ways. Karl's focus was total integration. Build the engine and the vehicle as one complete, harmonious machine. Daimler and Maybach focused on adaptability. Create an engine so good it could be used in almost anything with wheels, or even without. Daimler's engines powered boats, trams, and horse carriage conversions, while Karl continued to market the motorwagon as a completely new kind of transport. Public perception, however, was still split. To many, the car was a novelty, noisy, smelly, and impractical. Roads weren't designed for it, fuel was hard to find, and laws in some areas still favored horse-drawn vehicles. But slowly, the tide began to turn. In cities, people saw the speed advantage. In rural areas, they saw the potential for travel without caring for animals. And in the hearts of inventors, the race was on to make the automobile not just a machine for the rich, but a necessity for all. Neither Karl Benz nor Gottlieb Daimler could have guessed that their separate paths were already bending toward a collision course. Their competition was driving each of them to push harder, innovate faster, and set the stage for something far bigger than any single invention. By the 1890s, the automobile was no longer a strange sight in Germany. Karl Benz's motorwagen had evolved into more advanced models, while Daimler and Maybach's engines were appearing in carriages built by other manufacturers. Paris, London, and Vienna were starting to see early adopters driving through their streets. The dream of a new age in transport was becoming reality. Karl expanded production, moving beyond the original three-wheel design to four-wheeled models with more powerful engines. His company, Benz and CE, began to attract attention from wealthy customers and even royalty. But with attention came competition. Dozens of small manufacturers were springing up across Europe, each trying to put their own spin on the horseless carriage. Meanwhile, Daimler and Maybach weren't slowing down. They produced faster engines, improved reliability, and secured contracts with international clients. Their work was turning the internal combustion engine into a global export. It was a time of excitement, but also uncertainty. The automobile industry had no rules, no standards, and no clear path to mass adoption. Fuel stations didn't exist, mechanics were rare, and breakdowns were common. Yet demand was growing. Early car races, like the Paris-Rouen contest in 1894, captured the public's imagination, proving that these machines could handle long distances and varied terrain. The world was changing fast, and so were the fortunes of those who had sparked the change. The turn of the century brought both opportunity and danger for Karl Benz. His company was well known, but the market was crowded. Dozens of new competitors, including foreign manufacturers from France and Britain, were gaining ground. Some had deeper pockets, others were willing to take bigger risks on speed and luxury. Benz and CA faced another challenge. Karl's engineering style was rooted in precision and caution, but the public was starting to crave performance and style as much as reliability. Cars were becoming symbols of status, not just transport. Wealthy buyers wanted elegance, speed, and exclusivity, and Karl had to adapt. Meanwhile, Daimler Motor and Gesellschaft, DMG, the company founded by Gottlieb Daimler, was making waves with its new Mercedes brand, named after the daughter of a major investor. These sleek, powerful cars were winning races and grabbing headlines, setting new standards for what an automobile could be. For Karl, the competition was personal. While he respected Daimler and Maybach as fellow pioneers, their success put pressure on his company to evolve. Economic shifts, rising production costs, and the constant need for innovation meant that even the father of the automobile couldn't rest on his legacy. By the early 1920s, both Benz and CA and DMG were facing a new reality. The global auto industry had matured, and survival would require more than invention. It would require strategic alliances, and soon the paths of Karl Benz, Gottlieb Daimler, and Wilhelm Maybach would merge in a way that would redefine the automotive world forever. Chapter 10. The Merger That Made History. By the early 1920s, the automobile industry had transformed from a collection of small workshops into a global business. Germany, still recovering from World War I, faced economic hardship. The cost of producing cars was rising, competition was fierce, and the market demanded constant innovation. Both Benz and CA and Daimler, Motor and Gesellschaft, DMG, were respected names, but the strain was showing. Survival meant more than building great cars. It meant joining forces. Talks between the two companies began in earnest. Though Karl Benz and Gottlieb Daimler had never personally collaborated, Daimler had passed away in 1900, their legacies and engineering philosophies were now on a collision course. The merger was more than a business deal. It was the uniting of Germany's two greatest automotive bloodlines. In 1926, the agreement was signed. Benz and CA and DMG became one, Mercedes-Benz. The new brand combined Benz's tradition of precision engineering with the performance legacy of Daimler and Maybach's Mercedes models. The iconic three-pointed star, symbolizing land, sea, and air, became the shared emblem, representing a company determined to dominate every form of transport. This union created a powerhouse capable of competing on the world stage. The merger secured resources, pooled engineering talent, and combined decades of innovation. More importantly, it ensured that the pioneering spirit of all three founders would live on, not as separate stories, but as a single, unstoppable legend. Karl Benz lived long enough to witness something rare for an inventor, to see his once ridiculed idea become a global necessity. In the years after the merger, he was celebrated not just in Germany, but across the world as the father of the automobile. Towns held parades in his honor, Newspapers printed retrospectives on his life, and automotive clubs proudly carried his name. Despite his fame, Karl remained a humble man. He often credited Bertha for her role in proving the motorwagen's worth, acknowledging that without her daring journey, the world might not have embraced his invention so quickly. Together they had raised 5 children, passing down a legacy of determination and ingenuity. On April 4, 1929, Karl Benz passed away at the age of 84 in his home in Ladenburg. Just 2 months later, the world marked the 50th anniversary of the automobile, a celebration that served as a final tribute to the man who had set humanity's wheels in motion. He didn't live to see the full global dominance of Mercedes-Benz, but he left knowing that his vision had reshaped the way people lived, worked, and traveled. His journey from a boy in Mühlberg to a world-changing inventor stood as proof that the most extraordinary revolutions often begin with one impossible idea. Nearly a century after Karl Benz's passing, the name Mercedes-Benz remains synonymous with innovation, luxury, and engineering excellence. Every sleek sedan, roaring sports car, and cutting-edge electric model traces its DNA back to the motorwagen that rolled out of a small Mannheim workshop in 1885. Karl's legacy is not just about the machine he built, it's about the mindset behind it. His story is one of persistence in the face of doubt, of refusing to let the limits of the present define the possibilities of the future. Bertha's journey proved that vision needs courage, and Daimler and Maybach's parallel work showed that progress is often the product of many brilliant minds converging on the same dream. Today, Mercedes-Benz stands as a global icon, present in more than 150 countries, leading in both performance and technology. From Formula One victories to pioneering electric mobility, the three-pointed star continues to push boundaries, just as Karl once did. For the modern world, the lesson is clear. Innovation isn't about having all the answers. It's about daring to ask the questions no one else is asking. Karl Benz asked one of the most powerful questions of all. What if we could move without horses? And in answering it, he didn't just build a car, he built the road to the future.